you Chapter 5, Harishchandra the Truthful King. This story is adapted from the Purans and the Vedas. It was this story which inspired Mahatma Gandhi in his search for truth. Even today, it remains a powerful lesson in sincerity and truthfulness. So, take out your book and open the page number 32. Let's start the summary of the chapter. Harishchandra was the forefather of the Lord Rama and the son of the King Trishanku. He ruled over Ayodhya with his wife Taramati and his son Rohitashva. He was a kind king, and Harishchandra had early in his life learned the value of truth and decided to never tell a lie. In time, he gained the fame for his truthfulness, honesty, and firmness of the character. This fame reached the ears of the gods in heaven, and they decided to test him. The sage Vishwamitra was selected to be the one to test the king, and accordingly he set out on his task. So the Vishwamitra tried many things to get Harishchandra to lie or to reject a promise, but all his efforts proved useless. For Harishchandra was as strong in his values as had been heard by the gods. Finally, Vishwamitra managed to work out a situation where Harishchandra was obliged to give up his kingdom and all his possessions to the sage. Even when he had been tricked, Harishchandra gave up his kingdom with a smile, and with his wife and his son wearing only rags and barks of tree, set out for the forest stemmed by such kindness. But in a last attempt at very exciting, King Vishwamitra said to the king, "Where is the donation which given to a sage after charity?" Means dakshina. दान के बाद आपने मुझे दक्षिणा तो दी ही नहीं. But the king had nothing left give as dakshina. So he begged with Vishwamitra more time. He said to the sage, "At present, I have nothing to call my own. Please give me a month to pay your dakshina." Faced by such a humble request, the sage could not help but give it to him and grant the grace period of a month to pay. So Harishchandra roamed with aimlessly all over the country, trying to earn enough money to pay the sage. But even the gods seemed to be against him. So he was unsuccessful whenever he went. Finally, he reached the holy city of Kashi. Kashi was a town full of learned people who came there to gather even more knowledge. Pilgrims turned up in large numbers, full of devotions, and people came there in their old age, hoping to die in the holy city and reach heaven. Even in this crowded city, Harishchandra was unable to find any employment. Harishchandra was worried because the grace period was coming to an end. So his wife Taramati, who was as morally strong as her husband, made a suggestion. She said, "I have a suggestion to make which though it sounds improper, but the only way left to us. There is a great demand in the city for slaves. Slaves who can work for the many rich people who live here. Please sell me and use the money to pay off the sage. When you make enough money, you can buy me back again. Harishchandra was filled with fear at this suggestion. He cried, "It is impossible." However, as time passed and he was unable to earn money, so he had to give in to his wife and agreed to sell her. He sold her to the highest bidder. Bidder means बोली लगाने वाले जो होते हैं. An aged Brahmin who agreed to pay even more for the little boy accompanying her. Faced with no choice, Harishchandra accepted the money and let his wife and child go with the Brahmin. Just then, Vishwamitra arrived and demanded his dakshina again. And Harishchandra handed over all the money he had just received. But Vishwamitra was not satisfied. He said, "Is this the dakshina you pay a sage of my character? I cannot accept such a very small amount." As Harishchandra was thinking deeply over what to do, Chandala, a man of the lower castes who are only permitted to work and live on cremation's grounds. Cremation's ground means a place where dead bodies burns. So immediately Vishwamitra turned to Harishchandra and said, "Why don't you sell yourself to this man and pay me my due?" Harishchandra was horrified. Chandalas were considered untouchables. How had he fallen to such a low estate? Lower than even a Chandala. Even as such thoughts passed through his mind, he realized that he had no other option and agreed to work for the Chandala. Vishwamitra was finally satisfied with the money and left, leaving Harishchandra with the Chandala. The Chandala put Harishchandra to work in the cremation ground and teaching him how to cremate bodies, how to separate the burnt body parts, how much to charge, and so on. Harishchandra lived on in the cremation ground and worked with sincerity, though with a heavy heart. He all of the time thought of his wife and son. He thought, wondering what condition could they be in, and whether they were waiting for him to come and to save them. They do not even know that I am a slave myself. Time passed and Harishchandra grew used to the work. His wife and son too got used to the poverty and the hard life they led, working in the Brahmin's house. One day when Harishchandra's young son went to the garden to collect flowers, he was bitten by a snake and died. Taramati was full of sorrow. She cried and cried, but finally she had to agree to take the body to the cremated and started for the cremation ground with her child in her arms. Harishchandra was on duty at the cremation ground and he saw a woman bring a child for cremation. After all they had been through, neither of them recognized the other. As was his duty, Harishchandra asked for the charge for cremation. Taramati began crying and saying, I am a slave and have nothing except the clothes on my body. Even my only child is dead. What can I pay you? Harishchandra was moved by her sorrowful cry, but he could not avoid the duty of collecting the charge. Suddenly he noticed that the woman was wearing a Mangal Sutra. So he said to the woman, you can give me your Mangal Sutra exchange for the cremation. Taramati burst into tears as she did not want to part with the thing that kept the memory of her husband alive. And at that instant she recognized him. She said, we must have committed many sins our previous lives to be in this state today. I am your wife, but you do not recognize me. This is our son, who is a prince, but lies here dead, without even the benefit of cremation. When his wife said this, Harishchandra once recognized her and wept for his dead son, but would not move. It is my duty to collect this tax. I shall never move from my duty, no matter what happens. Taramati replied, all I have are the clothes on my body. Will you accept half of them that cremate our child? When Harishchandra agreed, she started tearing off her clothes. But just then the heavens opened. The gods were so pleased that they showered flowers on the couple just as Vishwamitra appeared. He said, O king, all your troubles have been created by the gods to test your commitment to truth and honesty. You have not only passed these tests, but have earned a place in heaven due to your good works. You can now return to your kingdom with your wife and son and continue to rule till it is time to enter heaven. As the sage said these words, the little boy lying dead on the pyre sat up and rubbed his eyes as if waking from sleep. Harishchandra and Taramati were overjoyed to see their son alive and were glad to hear that their troubles had ended. But he said, O sage, I am happy that my troubles have ended. But the fact remains that I am the slave of a Chandala and my wife the slave of a Brahmin. While we remain slaves, we cannot accept anything. But then Vishwamitra pointed to the Brahmin and the Chandala who had changed to their original forms. So the Brahmin was the Lord Indra and the Chandala was the Lord Dharma. They were so pleased with Harishchandra that they said finally, you have proved your sincerity and truthfulness. You are now free to go and rule your kingdom in peace. I hope you all have understood the chapter. So we will meet in next class. Stay home, stay safe, keep learning. Thank you.